Is that a common occurrence to just stand there and be willing to put your life on the line?
Yeah, I mean, that's the job. I mean, obviously you want to go home at the end of shift, but before you want everyone else to go home. I mean, that's your job, I guess. I don't know. It's hard to explain. I mean, it's just a calling for, these men and women that do this. That's just something they're willing to do.
I do not know you, but I am your brother.
You do not know me, but I am your protector.
I will run into a burning building to save your life.
Though I do not know your name, I will take a bullet for you.
Though we've never met,
I believe in duty and sacrifice
of self.
Your family is my family.
Is my family. Your life is my duty.
What's going on, guys? Time for another episode of Behind the Uniform. Super excited to have Brittany here with us today. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about who you are, your background, all that good stuff.
Okay. My name is Brittany Maynard, and I am a police officer with the Manchester Police Department in Connecticut. And I've been an officer for about 7 years now, a little over 7 years now. And yeah.
So before we dive into it, what'd you bring? Because we do not have this on the whiskey wall.
What is it?
Clyde Mays?
So that is one of my absolute favorites for whiskey. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, I've never actually had any. To be honest, I've never had any whiskey in my life.
Oh, well,
so what
welcome
I did,
to the party.
So what I actually did, I just got married in September, and I put together a little kit for the groomsmen. And one of the things I got was those bottle of whiskeys. And some cigars, of course, an ammo can, and one of those bullet shot glasses or whatever that they sell now.
That's a good wifey right
there.
there.
What I did was I actually just went over to the package store, Total Wine, and asked them what was good and what they recommended. I said that, and all the guys gave it a good review. And
it smells like the holidays. It smells spectacular.
Yeah.
Well, cheers to you.
I've never had it, so this is going to be my first time trying whiskey, so if I drop, I don't know
Excellent.
what to tell you.
This episode is not brought to you by Total Wines or Clyde Mays, but if they'd like to sponsor it moving forward, they're more than welcome to.
All right.
So first of all,
try it.
That's really good. That's really, really good. I'm impressed. And that's your first experience with whiskey, right?
Yep.
All right, so I want to start with the first time we met, where I didn't actually know that we met. Mm-hmm. It was right after our company Christmas party. It was right after my wife and I had our first kid, and we had a crazy person running around through the building screaming that they were going to murder somebody. So we called the police, and talk about a response. These guys came out, and you were there, right?
Yeah.
And it was just unbelievable. The officers who escorted us out of the building, we were obviously a little bit nervous because we had this maniac running around, but one of them said, "Don't worry, we're going to get you out of here safe, and we'll take a bullet before you ever do." And that was a really impactful moment to us because you guys had no idea who we were. Like, we had never met before. We were complete strangers to you guys. Is that a common occurrence to just stand there and be willing to put your life on the line?
Yeah, I mean, that's the job. I mean, obviously you want to go home at the end of shift, but before you want everyone else to go home. I mean, that's your job, I guess. I don't know. It's hard to explain. I mean, it's just a calling for, these men and women that do this. That's just something they're willing to do.
This is the whole point behind the series, is to show the men and women behind the uniforms, and that at the end of the day, they are just like us. They want to go home to their families, but they have a calling that they've answered that's very, very different from your average person. Some of us, after having seen some of the stuff that you guys go through, might argue that you guys have to be a little bit crazy to be a police officer in 2017. But it's a wonderful calling. So where do you want to start? A good day, a bad day? What do you want to tell us about?
I could start with, I guess, a bad day. I know Chief Montmany was on here and spoke to you, and he kind of touched on it a little bit. But so I got hired in 2010, and I went to the academy 6 months. Got out of the academy, I think in April I graduated. I had 5 weeks on the road, I believe, or so. And about May 19th, we had a call on the radio for an EDP with a gun, which an EDP stands for Emotionally Disturbed Person, is how we refer to it. So I'm driving, I'm with my FTO, my field training officer, 5 weeks on the road, still newbie, still kind of trying to learn
Totally fresh.
Yeah, oh yeah, like still trying to learn the roads and everything of the town. And one of my issues was, when I was in training, is orientation. I would go from point A to point B. I'd get there, but I'd go the long route because I was just familiar. I grew up in Manchester, so I was just familiar with the town. So the call comes in, and it was one of those chimes. It was a chime on the radio. First time I've ever heard it, obviously. And it's pretty much, all available units. The address, it was over on Cortlandt Street in Manchester. An EDP with a gun, families inside the house type of thing. So of course, I'm driving at the time, or no, I think my FTO was driving at the time, and he's like, "Where's Cortlandt Street? Where's Cortlandt Street?" He knew where it was, but it was my job. So I'm sitting there, I've got my big printout map, I'm trying to figure out, like, I'm looking at, in the back, looking at Cortlandt Street, I'm trying to find it, and he just went, like, obviously he's like, forget her, like, so we get there, and we're one of the first on scene, and we kind of park down the road, and, we're slowly making our way up to the house, and there was, I think, a couple other officers that had got there as well. And as we're like kind of approaching the house, of course, the guy's not outside at this point, and we hear, if I recall, 2 gunshots. It was a male with the gun, a wife, and then 2 kids were in the house with him. And I'll never forget the scream of the woman, like just blood-curdling scream. So in my head, I'm thinking like he just like shot his kids or something like that, and she's still there or she got shot. So we all kind of rushed the door. And, me, I'm still clueless. I have no idea what I'm doing.
Sure.
The academy, they prep you for stuff, but not stuff like this. So one of our lieutenants, he goes to, kind of shoulder the door. And I'm standing kind of like in the front by diagonal, and there's a window over here. And it's, I guess, a raised ranch, as you call it. And all of a sudden, I'm standing next to one of our bigger officers, Officer Beeler. And next thing I know, he's like, "I'm hit." I have no idea what's going on. He doesn't look like he's hit, and then he got shot, like through the window. Apparently none of us really heard it, I guess we were just so fixated on getting the house. So it's almost, you think about it and it's kind of weird to think like, what happens if we actually made it through that door?
Right.
Or my lieutenant, busted through that door and he was the first one, and the guy's waiting in the corner. I still don't know. I'm sure the investigation showed where maybe he got shot from. So obviously we all kind of retreated back, called it out that he was hit. They got him out of there. He actually was able to run out. So me and another officer, I get separated from my FTO at this point. So I'm kind of like on my own, me and another officer go behind this tree right in the front yard. I mean, if you look on the street, it's probably like the one tree like on the whole street, this giant tree right in the front yard. So I'm behind it with him, and at one point he's actually like holding onto my duty belt. I don't know if he thought I was gonna run, but I know I sure as heck wasn't leaving from behind that giant tree. So I remember him, just kind of guiding me. So I had like the right side of the tree, he had, the left. And as I look out on the driveway, I see my coworkers. My FTO is like laying behind a car with another officer. There's another officer behind a car to the front of the driveway, and then a female officer who I actually grew up with and went to middle school and high school with. She's behind a smaller tree, and she's tiny, so she's squinting behind the tree or stuffing herself behind the tree. And all of a sudden, like as soon as after he got shot, the guy just starts raining on us. So you hear glass breaking, he's shooting out through all the windows and everything, and of course it's just the radio, everything's just going crazy, and I'm just sitting there like,
what did I sign up for?
Well, yeah. So all I kept thinking was, as I'm behind that tree, is I'm going back to the vet. I'm going back to the vet. I'm going back to the vet. And when I say that is, before this job, I worked at Bolton Veterinary Hospital, and I have like a wicked strong passion for animals. I majored in animal science at UConn, a bachelor's degree in animal science.
Huh.
So this is like, I know it sounds kind of like weird how, like, why I'm a cop and stuff now, but so that's all I kept saying is I'm going back to the vet because I'm thinking of puppy dogs, kitty cats, I don't know what you say, but so I'm behind the tree, and I remember, them kept saying that they had contact with the guy, and the dispatcher was talking to the guy, and they're like, "Oh, he's coming out. So I'm talking to the officer next to me. I'm like, do I shoot him? I literally asked, do I shoot him? He's like, yes. Like, you gotta shoot him. And I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, well, I'm on the right side of the tree, he's on the left. So I'm like, literally I roll out, and I'm like right at the front door. So I'm thinking, like, I'm not even like legit, like, I'm an officer, but you still have to pass all the training.
Right.
So I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, this is gonna be like crazy. Like, what if I miss? Like, what if he shoots at me first?
Sure.
And the leaves are coming off the trees as he's shooting around us. So it seemed like we were there for a long time, and they end up bringing in one of the armored the vehicles, the Peacekeeper, as they call it. And one of our police service aides, he does like the fingerprinting and stuff like that. He actually drove it down to the scene, and then another officer jumped in, and they started kind of getting everybody out. So as they moved up the driveway, got those guys out, the suspect was just peppering the little window, and it's bulletproof, and it's just, you could see it. It's just, all the holes are attempted holes that go in it. So he gets those guys out kind of like one at a time, and then brings them back. So me and the other officer that are behind the tree are the last ones there.
Jeez.
So now it's just like us, like we're in like that zone, just me and him. So they back up, and they're like kind of backing up to the tree. He jumps in, and I'm still like kind of like just kneeling, kind of covering, in case he running out. I don't know what I was thinking. Well, the Peacekeeper actually like rolled over my foot a little bit, so I was like, I'm stuck. Like it didn't hurt, but like because I was kneeling, so like the bottom of my foot, so like it was like I'm like my foot was like under the tire, and I couldn't get like my boot out. So that was fun, and it like actually bumped me forward. So I'm like, oh God, like I almost like fell out from behind the tree.
Oh jeez.
So yeah, so of course, so then they like had me jump in again, being new, like completely just overwhelmed. I jump into this armored vehicle, bulletproof vehicle, with my gun out, like jumping in. So like I remember one of the officers just like grabbing my hand, like because I can't even imagine if like I let a round off like in there or something like that. So they drive us out and get us to down the road a little bit, and here I am thinking like I'm good. Next thing you know, they're like, go find cover, because he's seeing us still down the street, and he's still shooting at us down the street.
Jeez.
So me and the other female officer that was new, she was still in training as well. So we go behind like a house, and I remember like feeling, I don't know if I in my head I think I felt like dehydrated, I guess, but I honestly like it was shock, and I had to like kind of sit for a minute. Regain myself. She was good the whole time, because she had a little more time on than me. But yeah, and then we end up pretty much just trying to get to where we can. We have no idea what we're doing because now we're with no other officers.
Right.
So yeah, so that was interesting. And then of course us running and made the front page of the paper. And you could see the petrified face that I had because I had no idea what was going on. And
But the media is so friendly to police these days.
Well, yeah, back then it didn't, they're, I think, decent to us, I guess. I don't remember, but...
How did it all end?
It ended with the guy wanting to let his family out. I don't know to this day if he was actually holding his family hostage,
Right.
or if they were just in there and he was, he didn't really want them to leave type of thing. I don't know, the investigation would show that, but it ended because when they left and they got out of the house, the dispatcher, not really, they're not on scene, they have no idea what's going on, and
Right.
then, they always do a great job, pretty much said, hey, like, can you see them, did they make it? And, the suspect's one mistake was, this whole thing was he kind of stuck his head out, and the sniper, who at this point, everybody is there, SWAT team, everything, and, this is all, they, long after, I got out of there, they all kind of moved in and stuff, and, shot him and took him down, so.
One of the things that you mentioned early on was about how gunshots were coming out and the officer was hit and you guys didn't even realize you were being shot at.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that Rob over at Manchester Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, who's a police officer, mentioned was that in times like this, you go through a sort of a sensory deprivation where your adrenaline is going, you're focused on the task at hand, and sometimes we block out everything else that's happening. How has, now that you're years into this, how has your training helped with that?
I don't know if it's training and stuff, but I feel like it's more or less just experience. You can't train for every little call that you're going on because it's so different, and every person that you deal with is so different. And it's just experience. The amount of calls that you go on, the variety of calls you go on, even to this day. I've gone to calls, and I think going to the call, like, okay, am I going to do this? What if this happens? What if that happens? That's something that I always do for my calls, the bigger calls. Not like, the more.
But how do you
frequent
sleep
things.
after that?
How do I sleep?
After a day like that, it's not like you could just go home and crash, I'd imagine.
I do. It's funny because it's draining. Like currently I'm on evening shift, and I would say it's probably one of the busiest shifts. And that's probably when you get like the most intense calls and stuff. Some days, could be more quiet than others. But if it's a busy shift and you're domestic after domestic or this crazy call or that crazy call, you go home. I mean, me personally, I'm wiped.
Sure.
Like I'm exhausted. I go home, and I crash. But I mean, it's, definitely you think about it a lot. You definitely wake up in the middle of the night and because I think it's more or less your brain is going so quick. Like your brain is so busy, because there's been cases that I worked on for like a week. Like a robbery with a gun, and the kid got pistol whipped with the gun pretty bad, and it's just I in my head at home, trying to just relax, or I'm thinking, oh, did I do this? Did I do that?
Sure.
Or you wake up in the middle of the night and you think, oh, like I didn't think to do this. So it's just it's one of those things, but then there's times where you have calls that are, sad. It's sad to have somebody deal with, or what people go through, and you can't help but like go home and think of that person or think of what they're going through, and then you look at your home and your family and feel how lucky you are. It's just, so sometimes in that aspect you feel a little, I guess, guilty.
Sure. Well,
that
tell me
this
about a
didn't
good day.
happen. Good day? I mean, there's I don't know. I mean, I can't really say like there's a super good day. There's definitely better experiences for me, more happy experiences, or things that make me feel better about. I don't even know how
Well, how
to
about this?
describe
What's
it.
the most fulfilling part of the job for you?
Fulfilling part? Okay, being thanked. Having people write thank you cards, we appreciate that. I mean, as little and minuscule as it sounds, a gentleman recently, me and another actually lieutenant helped him get into his car. It took us like probably a good half hour to get into his car because he locked his keys in the car. Sent me a thank you card, and it's still actually on my like kitchen table right now. Another time I was at like a Subway, and there's an older gentleman, they were closing, and he was getting Subways for him and his wife. And he, older gentlemen or older people tend to carry cash. They don't carry cards and
Right.
stuff. So he had like $100 bill, and he was trying to pay them with a $100 bill. And they're like, we don't have any change, we can't take that. So he goes out to the car. So I'm like, I paid for their Subways. Didn't think anything of it. I think I had my jacket on, so they didn't even see like my name tag, nothing like that. And they went home. So maybe like a week later, I get a thank you card from them, and I had no idea what their names were. And it says, thank you so much for our subs. They were delicious. Like it was
Like
really
you
cute.
prepared them as well.
Yeah. So things like that, and and then I have calls with kids. You deal with calls with kids, and more recently, I had a call, and it was an unfortunate circumstance with the child, and his mother had been driving drunk and stuff like that. And I remember that, the officers on scene, they asked me, just, get the kid, take the kid. So I picked him up. He had to be maybe 3 years old or so.
God.
And, I'm talking to him, and I said, do you want me to put you down? You want to hold my hand, just, put me down? He's like, no, just hold me. Just hold me.
Oh.
So then, I go back to the station and then kind of become a babysitter. And we hang out, draw, play games or whatever, and, our little room there that we have for like our lunchroom, and something like that. It makes it fun. And then you see this kid, and he's now he's more familiar with a cop or a police officer,
Yeah.
and they don't see you in a threatening manner anymore. But I mean, things like that, like the little things like that, I wouldn't say necessarily is like I can't like say like I went to work and it was a great day at work, like
Sure.
everything was happy and cheerful.
But it's all
and-
relative.
yeah, and there's certainly been more humorous days at work, which definitely helps lighten the mood. But
Well, let me ask you this: what does America mean to you?
everything, to me, I don't know. I can't really describe it. I have to say that I feel proud. It's something that I wish everyone kind of realized how lucky they are. If you ask me something like that, and it's like you kind of become speechless, because it's like words can't even, I know it sounds corny, but like.
No, I don't think it sounds corny at all. I think that the truest form of pride is sometimes that which we can't necessarily communicate. It's that which we feel inside. And you guys are the definition of America, to me at least, and to so many people who watch this series. So guys, simple request, take the 2 seconds that it's going to take to hit share on this. Let's help share some of these stories and really, once again, just humanize these men and women who are behind the uniform. So thank you so much for coming. Great job on the whiskey. You
Yeah,
nailed
You
it.
can finish mine. I don't know if I can handle it.
That won't be a problem. Well, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you all so much for sharing, for watching, and God bless America.